What's going on, guys? It's Cal here from Buffalo Sports Center. Today I'm going to be giving you a little bit of my prediction for the trade deadline for the Buffalo Sabres. Keep in mind the trade deadline, March 7th. It's fastly approaching. The Sabres are in a tough spot right now. Of course, Kevyn Adams is fighting for his job security. A lot of people are going to say, well, the Sabres can wait till the offseason. They can get some good deals on some free agents and potentially salvage this disaster they put themselves in. The only issue with that is Kevyn Adams knows he might not make it to the offseason to be able to do those things. So he has to make some moves at the deadline. Now, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on too much from the Sabres, but let's dive into some players I think could get traded from the Sabres. Again, these are players I don't think they're gonna, but they could. Let's start off with Dylan Cozens. On the season, 11 goals, 30 points. Listen, I know we're all Dylan Cozens fans in one way or another, right? We all think of that game against the Leafs, that outdoor heritage classic where Cozens, ejected in the final few minutes. That was the peak of his career, right? That's what we remember Dylan Cozens for. Maybe you remember him from the Ryan Miller night overtime winner. But again, Dylan Cozens was very high on our list of prospects for many years, and man, he's just had a couple bad years in a row, and you got to start to think maybe Dylan Cozens already hit his peak, and maybe we should probably get rid of him now while we still can. The issue with Dylan Cozens is he still has that physicality aspect to his game where if he could put it all together and be a goal scorer with physicality, he could really be one of the top players on this team in the future. So it does worry me a little bit that Dylan Cozens could get traded at this trade deadline, but also if Dylan Cozens is going to keep playing like he is, it is worth getting rid of him. So keep in mind 11 goals on the season. Again, we'd like to see that number a little bit higher from one of our top guys. So just look for Dylan Cozens to potentially get traded, although I don't really expect this one. Now let's move on to another guy who's underachieving this year, Jack Quinn. 10 goals, 22 points. That 10 goals is very sneaky, though, because he's been very invisible, and Jack Quinn by far is on the negative in plus minus. Him and Cozens are really the two that stand out on that stat line. Everyone else is pretty solid on the plus minus on the year. It's just, man, Cozens and Quinn have not gotten it together when they're on the ice at the same time. And that kid line of Peterka, Cozens, and Quinn just doesn't seem to exist anymore, which is sad, but it was fun a couple seasons ago. But man, they just don't click anymore. I don't really understand it, but something between Lindy Ruff's new playing style and how all three of them have adapted over time, it's just not working. Jack Quinn, one of those guys that before the season, I know a lot of Sabres fans thought that was the main reason they didn't spend money, right? You got to re-sign JJ long-term and you got to re-sign Jack Quinn long-term. Well, all of a sudden, JJ Peterka is having a mediocre season and Quinn is having an absolutely terrible season. We're going to have a lot of money to spend in the offseason, so maybe you get rid of Quinn now instead of having to re-sign him. Get some prospects for him. Maybe I know they didn't want to get any prospects. Maybe you get one NHL-ready player for him and just move on, move that money down the line. It wouldn't really be worth it to do a late-round pick or anything like that, right? If you're just going to do that, keep him around. He's going to be very cheap to re-sign. But, man, after those back-to-back lower body injuries, he just hasn't been the same player. He's not as fast as he once was. His shot is somewhat still there, but he relies on that toe drag shot, and defenders know it's coming every time, and that's really all he's got in his bag right now. So hopefully Jack Quinn can work through this and get back to the level he once was in his rookie year, but since then, he just hasn't been a good player at all for this team, and honestly one of the worst on the ice. So keep an eye out for Jack Quinn at the trade deadline. Now let's move on to a couple defensemen on this team. Starting off with Bowen Byram, 7 goals on the year, 29 points. He's a very streaky player on the offensive side of things. How many games have we seen Bowen Byram score multiple goals? Yeah, if you've been counting, it's a lot. And that's kind of crazy to think. He's only got 7 goals this year and not too many more last season. But Bowen Byram, when he scores in a game, expect another one, right? This guy is very streaky on offense. As far as his defense goes, he's quick. He's not a great shot blocker, but he is a very solid defender. And I would put him in the top 3 on our team as far as defense goes. And if he's going to be a top 3 defender and he has that offensive ability, it would be really unfortunate to trade a guy like Bowen Byram. But he is due for a new contract very soon, and he has repeatedly said he wants to be a top defensive guy on a team. Well, Rasmus Dahlin is locked up and he's the captain, so you're never going to be number 1 in Buffalo. We'll see if his mindset shifts a little bit if the Sabres can dish him out a hefty contract in the offseason. But if the Sabres want to move a defenseman, I think it is going to be Bowen Byram to try to get some more forward help on this team. keep an eye out for Bowen Byram as well. Now let's move on to the other defenseman who I really don't think gets traded, but we got to bring him up. Owen Power, 6 goals on the year, 31 points. Owen Power continues to show his offensive ability, but he is a defender, and his defense has been very shaky his entire NHL career. He's very soft. He doesn't like to be physical. He seems like a baby deer in the defensive zone, right? He's very uncoordinated in that defensive zone. He gets guys, he misses guys cutting in left and right. He's very weak in front of the net on the closeouts. Block shots aren't really his thing as well, so again, Owen Power reminds me of a young Rasmus Dahlin, right? He's very afraid to do anything with the puck. He's scared, and until you get him a defensive partner who is competent, I'm not going to hold that too much against him, but at this point, I would have liked to see a little bit more development with Owen Power. I know he's got a lot of points this year, and, for the first quarter of the season, he was right up there with the best of them in the league in 5-on-5 points, but man, Owen Power's defense has been so lackluster. I wouldn't be completely shocked to see them move on from him at this trade deadline, especially with Kevyn Adams panic to make a move. We'll see what happens, but I highly doubt it. Now let's end this video with a couple guys I wanted to bring up, maybe some smaller trades again. This is kind of more what I'd be expecting at this trade deadline. Let's start with Sam Lafferty, a guy who's pretty much worked himself out of the lineup. One of those big three of the new fourth line that didn't really seem to work. Shout out Beck Malenstein, you've been the best of the bunch, but Abe Kubel down with the Amherst, and Sam Lafferty most likely going to get traded at the deadline to a contender just to be an extra body. Hopefully the Sabres can get something for him, maybe a late round pick, maybe a prospect. We'll see what happens. Now let's move on to the last guy I want to talk about, Peyton Krebs, a very feisty player, 4 goals, 16 assists, or 16 total points, actually. So, yeah, a decent year for Krebs, but again, you got him in the Jack Eichel trade. He was supposed to be the big fish in the Jack Eichel trade, right? It wasn't even supposed to be Tuck. Tuck was supposed to be your NHL player, but Krebs was supposed to be the up-and-comer, and Peyton Krebs has not lived up to the hype at all. Don't get me wrong. I love Peyton Krebs as a player. It's just not what we expected, right? We didn't expect that, big move from the Jack Eichel trade to be a fourth-line feisty guy who's going to drop the gloves and, be involved behind the net. We expected the guy we saw the first season he was with us, right? Making crafty passes, a playmaker who scores goals as well. I know on the Instagram we had the Krebs rave post that, we've posted that multiple times in that season. And to be honest, we haven't been posting it much this season because he's only got 4 goals. And yeah, it was a disappointing few seasons for Krebs after that first season that we had him. So maybe he bounces back with another team if we do trade him. Again, I don't want to trade Peyton Krebs, but that's just someone I think that not a lot of people are talking about and not enough people are talking about. I think Peyton Krebs could be a very valuable asset to a playoff team. And if the Sabres are not going to make the playoffs this year, maybe they could get a big package for a guy like Peyton Krebs that you probably wouldn't expect them to get. So let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Any of these guys get traded? Does anyone else on the team stand out to you that you want gone? And also a look around the league. Who should the Sabres acquire at the trade deadline? Keep in mind the Sabres are going to have a good amount of money in the offseason to spend. Mitch Marner, Elias Pettersson, maybe that stuff gets done in the offseason. I don't see any of those guys getting moved at the deadline, though. Let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching this video, and peace out.